Welcome to the quiet cosmos while the world below hums with late-night traffic, flickering screens, and dreams stitched in silence. Something stirs above. Not in the stars, but just beneath them. A quiet palace orbiting Earth, not imagined, but real. Not ancient myth, but modern marvel. This is Tiangong, the heavenly palace, China's own space station, gently circling the planet once every 90 minutes. Drifting through darkness and light, holding within it not only astronauts, but an entire vision of the future. Tonight, you are invited aboard. Breathe deeply, slowly. Float with us through science, wonder, and the soft corridors of space, where time stretches, gravity fades, and the quiet cosmos unfolds. Welcome to the quiet cosmos, where science is not shouted, but whispered, just before sleep. Every launch begins the same way, with thunder. A deafening, trembling surge, as metal and flame tear sky from sky. But minutes later, that noise fades, and what's left is silence. The takenauts aboard China's Shenzhou spacecraft lean back in their seats, listening to their own breath, their heartbeat, the hum of life support systems. Below them, the Earth grows smaller. Above them, Tiangong awaits. But this story begins long before launch. It begins with a decision. It begins with a question. In the early 2000s, as the International Space Station blossomed through collaboration between the US, Russia, Europe, Japan, and Canada, one nation remained conspicuously absent: China. Due to political restrictions and concerns, it was not invited to join the ISS program. And so, in a move both practical and poetic, China turned its gaze inward and upward. If we are not welcomed into the house, the reasoning went, we will build our own in the stars. Thus was born the dream of Tiangong, not as defiance, but as determination. Not as a monument to isolation, but as a promise of persistence. And like many great dreams, it began small. The first Tiangong was launched in 2011. It was small, humble, a stepping stone in orbit. It served as a testbed for rendezvous, docking, and human habitability. Tiangong followed in 2016, slightly larger, more refined, hosting 2 astronauts for 30 days. It proved China could sustain life in low Earth orbit, perform microgravity experiments, and remotely manage space-based technology. Then, after years of silence, came the true beginning. In 2021, the Tiancore module was launched, the beating heart of China's new permanent space station. It would become the central corridor, the spine to which other modules would attach. And soon, the Wenchun and Mengian modules followed, expanding the station like petals from a central bloom. The Tiangong space station was no longer a prototype. It was real, and it was beautiful. As you drift off tonight, the Tiangong station orbits 400 kilometers above your pillow. It is 20 tons of pressurized dreams, a sleek, modular laboratory. Solar wings unfurl like the feathers of a mechanical crane, catching the sun's breath inside. 3 astronauts, known as takenauts, move gently from chamber to chamber. They do not walk, they float. Each push of a finger against a wall carries them forward like poetry. And while the Earth spins below, they conduct experiments, maintain systems, eat steamed dumplings, record journals, and gaze out through portholes at the fragile world beneath. What is it like to call that home? Unlike the early spacefaring pioneers, China's astronauts train in a mix of ancient philosophy and modern rigor. They study physics, medicine, and emergency survival. They practice underwater, simulating weightlessness. They are selected not only for physical excellence, but for psychological calm. To live in space is not a conquest, it is an act of peace, of patience. As one taikonaut wrote in his diary, "The stars are not lonely, they are just quiet." And in that quiet, China is writing a new chapter in the story of space, not as a challenger, but as a caretaker. China's exclusion from the ISS may have been political, but its response was philosophical. Rather than protest the decision, China quietly constructed a parallel vision. Tiangong is not built in opposition, it is built in orbit. While the West watches, China builds. While headlines compete, the station completes. And now, the world is beginning to take notice. European experiments are now flying aboard Tiangong. International proposals have been submitted, and discussions of future cooperation, scientific, not political, are underway. Because space, in its vast silence, does not care for borders, it only cares for balance. In Mandarin, Tiangong means heavenly palace, a name both romantic and rooted in ancient Chinese mythology. Tiangong was the realm of the Jade Emperor, a celestial kingdom where immortals resided above mortal affairs. Today, the name has returned, not in myth, but in metal, not ruled by gods, but guided by engineers. And yet, the poetry remains. When astronauts float through its corridors, they are not just scientists. They are echoes of philosophers, explorers, and poets. They carry both data and dreams. Right now, as you listen, as your breath softens, Tiangong completes another rotation around the Earth. It passes over deserts and deltas, cities and silence. It is neither seen nor heard, but it is there. A quiet testament to what happens when a nation dreams without noise. A station made not of confrontation, but constancy. And now, in this video, you are part of that orbit. You are weightless with them, among the stars, high above the Earth, where the atmosphere fades into silence. A new kind of architecture floats. It is not built on land, nor does it rest on foundations. It is not made to last for centuries, but for orbits. And yet, it is one of the most ambitious structures humanity has ever created. This is Tiangong, China's space station. And tonight, you will not just visit it. You will understand how it was made. Where rivets hold breath and panels catch the sun. Where every bolt was tested to survive the void. Where silence is not emptiness, but design. Welcome back, dreamer, to the quiet cosmos. Like a celestial orchid opening in orbit, the Tiangong station is composed of three main petals. Tiante, the core module. Tan, He, harmony of the heavens. Wenshan, the science module. Wintan, quest for the heavens. Mention, the laboratory module. Mengtan, dreaming of the heavens. Each name is poetic. Each design is precise. Together, they create a living laboratory that dances around the Earth at 28,000 kilometers per hour. At the center is Tianj, launched in April 2021. It is the brain, spine, and lungs of the space station, responsible for life support, navigation, communications, and docking. At 16.6 meters long, it is sleek and efficient, built not for comfort, but for continuity. It houses sleeping quarters, control panels, gym equipment, and a kitchen, small comforts inside a steel heartbeat. Its docking ports can connect with cargo ships, crewed missions, and new modules, like arms welcoming additions to a growing body. The core module is not flashy, It is not ornamental. It is essential. Like the rhythm of a heart, Tianti keeps everything alive. On either side of Tiante are Wenxian and Manshan. These modules are not just rooms. They are orbiting laboratories. Each carries hundreds of racks for experiments in biology, materials, medicine, and physics. In Wenshan, astronauts study how cells divide in weightlessness. In Menshan, lasers bounce through crystals to unlock the structure of matter. There is no applause, no cheering audience, just data and drifting. These modules are not just tools. They are questions in metal form, suspended above the earth, waiting for answers. Stretching from the modules like wings are massive solar arrays. They unfold in silence, with the grace of a crane in flight. Made of ultra-thin photovoltaic cells, they convert sunlight into energy, enough to power all life and systems on board. Each panel tracks the sun like a sunflower in orbit, adjusting its angle every moment to sip light from space. They store this energy in batteries for the long shadows of night. When the station falls into Earth's shadow and becomes invisible to the eye. In the dark, the station glows, not from sunlight, but from memory. Attached to Wensen is China's robotic arm, a multi-jointed, intelligent limb capable of grasping, repairing, and even moving entire modules. Unlike a human arm, it can extend far beyond its own length by moving hand over hand like a monkey in a tree. It's used to assist with external maintenance, camera adjustments, and even helping astronauts move outside the station during spacewalks. In zero gravity, strength is less important than control. Here, motion is not muscle, but mind. A tiny twitch becomes a ballet. A mistake, a drift into forever. So the arm moves slowly, carefully, like it is thinking, and perhaps it is. Unlike buildings on Earth, the Tiangong station was not constructed in one place. It was assembled in orbit. Each module was launched separately aboard Long March 5B rockets. Each one drifted silently into the same altitude, then matched velocity with the Tian module. Then came the most delicate phase, docking, a dance of precision. The arriving module inches forward using tiny thrusters, guided by lasers, gyroscopes, and ground control. Millimeters matter. If too fast, it could damage both structures. If too slow, it could drift forever. But with each docking, the station grew, like a flower blooming one petal at a time. Building a space station is not about dreams. It's about danger. There is no oxygen in orbit, no gravity to settle fluids, no repair crew, just a phone call away. So every component is tested again and again. Can it survive minus 150 degrees Celsius nights and plus 120 degrees Celsius days? Can it endure micrometeorites striking at 7 kilometers per second? Can it keep humans alive if something fails? Materials must be light yet unbreakable. Systems must be redundant, always two of everything. And astronauts must be trained to be engineers, doctors, and plumbers, all in one. Tiangong is not just a structure, it is a question, answered with caution. The station is not alone. It is watched over by ground control in Beijing and monitored by satellites. But it also watches itself. Tiangong is equipped with artificial intelligence, capable of adjusting its own orientation, balancing power loads, and alerting crew to anomalies. If all humans were to fall asleep at once, the station would still hum along, still breathing, still orbiting, like a candle left in the night. despite all its complexity, Tiangong carries familiar comforts. Portholes with windows that astronauts clean regularly, a galley stocked with hot noodles, dried fruits, and tea walls lined with soft materials to reduce noise. Sleep pods with zippered sleeping bags to prevent floating, even music plays in the background. Traditional Chinese instruments or nature sounds, depending on the crew. Because no matter how far we float, we still carry the Earth within us. China has left room for more science modules, possibly an optical telescope that will fly nearby, docking with the station for maintenance, a kind of Hubble with a home. International collaborations are increasing. Scientists from Europe, Asia, and Africa have all submitted research. And one day, perhaps, foreign astronauts will live aboard Tiangong too. It may have begun as a solitary palace, but it is slowly becoming a shared temple of science. As we leave Tiangong for now, drifting backward in our quiet capsule of sleep, look again at what floats above. Not a fortress, not a laboratory, not just metal or code or mission patches, but an idea given form that we can build in silence, that we can live in peace, that even without gravity, we can hold together. The Tiangong station is not just engineered, it is imagined. And tonight, you imagined it with us. Let the solar panels close gently in your mind. Let the modules dim. Let the robotic arm rest. We continue in the next section, where astronauts dream and science breathes. But for now, sleep, float, and let the quiet cosmos carry you. Above the spinning Earth, there are no birds, no clocks, no footsteps. Yet somewhere, 400 kilometers above the oceans and continents, 3 human beings float gently through a hollow world of white panels and blinking lights. This is not science fiction. This is life aboard the Tiangong space station. And tonight, as the Earth darkens outside your window, we'll travel there, not as engineers or reporters, but as quiet observers, to understand what it means to truly live among the stars. In space, there is no morning, there is only motion. The Tiangong station orbits Earth once every 90 minutes, which means the crew experiences 16 sunrises and sunsets every day. But to live with meaning, humans need rhythm. So the taconauts follow Beijing Standard Time. Each morning, soft cabin lights fade in. A soft alarm plays, often a piece of classical music or a traditional melody. They rise not from beds, but from the air, sleeping bags tethered to the wall like quiet cocoons. There are no groggy stretches, no footsteps to the bathroom, only careful motions. In zero gravity, every gesture becomes a glide. They brush their teeth with a dab of water, wash their face with a wipe, gently seal up their supplies so they don't drift. The day has begun, not with a sunrise, but with breath. In the galley, breakfast waits in vacuum-sealed pouches, rice porridge, spiced tofu, pickled vegetables, sometimes a treat, red bean buns, or sesame snacks sent from home. The food is heated in a warm box, eaten with magnetic chopsticks or spoons. There is no table. They float, hooking their legs into foot loops to stay in place. Conversation is light. Sometimes they joke. Sometimes they simply float in silence, looking out the window as Earth rolls by, blue, white, green, so beautiful, so far, so familiar. Without gravity, bones weaken, muscles shrink, blood pools in the chest. The human body begins to forget what it means to stand. So each day, taconauts spend 2 hours exercising. They strap themselves into treadmills with bungee cords, pedal a stationary bicycle that floats, use a resistance machine to mimic gravity's pull. It is strange to sweat in space. The droplets float from your skin. Fans collect them from the air, but the effort is essential. Without it, they would return to Earth, unable to walk, even in space. The body remembers the ground, and it fights to return. After exercise and hygiene, the crew begins their science shifts. Each takeonaut is a scientist, lab technician, and data recorder. They tend to plant experiments, studying how roots grow when there's no up or down. They monitor fluid dynamics, how boiling and condensation behave without convection. They observe crystal formation, test medical tools, and conduct protein folding simulations. Each task is quiet, methodical, slow. They float from station to station, notebooks in hand, cameras rolling. There is no rush, no honking outside, only orbit, only data, only the sound of the Earth whispering below. Living in space is not all science. There are wires to inspect, air filters to clean, water systems to recycle. Even the toilet, a small vacuum-assisted device, must be checked regularly to ensure it works. A clogged toilet in space is more than inconvenient. It's dangerous. So takenauts, like monks in a high-tech temple, clean constantly, wipe surfaces, tether tools, record inventory. Everything has its place, because a drifting tool is not just lost, it becomes a hazard. Order in space is peace. In the evenings, the crew connects with mission control via radio and video uplink. They discuss procedures, anomalies, and status checks. But sometimes there's a quiet moment, a voice from Earth saying, "How are you feeling today? Did you sleep well?" Your family says hello. Each message is a thread linking them back to forests, cities, oceans. Sometimes they receive video messages from loved ones, a child waving, a parent smiling, a spouse sending quiet words across the void. And sometimes the takenauts write messages back. One crew member once typed, "Earth looks like a marble in a jar of ink, but it still feels like home." And if a special festival is happening, mid-autumn, Lunar New Year, they open gifts and traditional foods sent in cargo ships. Sometimes they listen to music, sometimes they read Chinese poetry, philosophy, short novels. Sometimes they speak with the stars. One astronaut brought a flute, another a calligraphy set. Art continues, even in orbit, before sleeping. Each astronaut spends time writing a journal. It is not just record-keeping, it is reflection. They describe what they saw, what they felt, what they miss. They talk about the sound of silence, the color of space, the slowness of time. One takenaut wrote, "Tonight I saw a thunderstorm over the Pacific. It looked like a heartbeat flashing through the ocean. I watched it until I forgot I was in space." These journals are later used by scientists and poets alike, because to live in orbit is not just physical, it is deeply human. Each crew member has a small, private room, barely large enough to stretch out. Inside, a sleeping bag, tethered to the walla reading lighty, tiny screen for entertainment. A photograph from home they climb in, zip up and drift. There is no bed, no gravity, no tossing or turning, only stillness, only the sound of their own breath echoing inside a pressurized palace. They fall asleep as Earth spins beneath them, and dreams begin. Not on a mattress, but in motion. Training for space is not just physical, it is mental. Astronauts are trained to endure solitude, stress, and silence. They meditate, they visualize, they prepare for everything, from system failures to emotional breakdowns. But they also speak of peace, of clarity, of floating through the dark with no weight, not even of thought. One astronaut once described space as a monastery with a view. And perhaps, in its silence, Tiangong becomes a kind of chapel, a place not just for science, but for understanding. From the station, Earth does not look political. There are no borders, no flags, no divisions, just one blue swirl wrapped in white clouds hanging in black space. Astronauts speak of something called the overview effect, a sudden realization that we are all part of a single, fragile world. It is not intellectual, it is emotional. Many weep, some pray, others return as activists, philosophers, teachers, and some, like China's takenauts, simply write, "The earth is small, our hearts should be large." As the day ends, the lights in Tiangong fade to dim blue. Outside, another sunrise is coming. Inside, 3 humans sleep, drifting in air, wrapped in warmth, orbiting silence. They do not dream of stars, they are already among them. And as you sleep tonight, you are with them, floating, breathing, and being human in the most extraordinary place. Not with shouting headlines, not in hurried labs filled with footsteps and fluorescent lights, but in orbit. Inside China's Tiangong space station, 3 astronauts drift gently through weightlessness, carrying out a sacred task, the pursuit of knowledge, untethered by gravity. And tonight, you're invited to join them, to slow down, to float through the quiet corridors of a laboratory beyond the sky, to ask questions that weigh nothing and matter infinitely on Earth. Gravity is always present, tugging at every cell, every drop, every atom. But remove it, and something extraordinary happens. Flames change shape, fluids behave like living beings, crystals form more perfectly, cells grow differently, proteins fold in new ways in orbit. Science is free from the force that shaped it. It begins again, not from scratch, but from wonder. And so, Tiangong becomes a crucible, a quiet forge of insight, where gravity is no longer the master. Inside the mention module, sealed boxes glow with soft blue light. These are biological experiments, studying how life responds when up and down disappear. Plant seeds are germinating in strange spirals. Roots meander sideways. Leaves reach nowhere in particular, yet still they grow. Human stem cells float, divide, and organize in 3 dimensions, forming structures never seen on Earth. Microorganisms behave more aggressively, sometimes adapting in curious ways, raising questions for future medicine and space farming. Without gravity, fluids no longer settle at the bottom of cells. Nutrients move by diffusion alone. Genes turn on or off in ways still being discovered. A floating lab allows us to watch life, unlearn Earth, and begin again. In another chamber, engineers monitor small flame experiments. On Earth, fire rises, hot air climbs, smoke drifts upward. But in space, fire becomes a sphere. It does not flicker, it hovers. It glows like a tiny sun, perfectly still, without convection, Combustion behaves unpredictably. Soot forms in new patterns. Heat disperses more slowly. This matters, not just for astronauts, but for building safer engines, cleaner fuels, and fire protection systems back on Earth. In the silence of orbit, fire teaches us its true self. Fluids are perhaps the strangest actors in microgravity. They cling to surfaces, creep along walls, form bubbles that never pop, refuse to mix as they do on Earth. In Tiangong, fluid mechanics experiments help researchers improve cooling systems for satellites, and reactors design better water purification for long missions. Understand blood flow and medication delivery in the human body. Even simple tasks like pouring a cup of tea become complex in orbit. In space, water dances like thought, slow, curious, unpredictable. Down in Earth labs, scientists struggle to grow perfect crystals for studying proteins or creating new materials. On Tiangong, those same molecules arrange themselves more cleanly in microgravity. There's no sedimentation, no jostling, just time and silence. This allows for improved drug development by studying how proteins fold or bind new alloys formed in ways impossible on Earth. More efficient semiconductors grown with fewer defects. These tiny floating experiments may one day change how we treat disease, build computers, and even construct habitats on the Moon or Mars. A perfect crystal begins in weightlessness and lands with answers inside Tiangong. Astronauts serve as both test subjects and researchers. They wear biosensors, monitor heart rates, and track how bones, muscles, and immune systems change over weeks and months. Space affects the human body in strange ways. Bones lose calcium, fluids shift toward the brain, eyes swell, slightly altering vision. The immune system behaves unpredictably, so Chinese scientists are testing countermeasures. Nutritional supplements, muscle stimulators, artificial gravity. Concept sound soon. Regenerative medicine, including tissue scaffolding in zero gravity. The goal, not just survival, health, thriving. Return. Space is a testbed for the future of healing, not only for astronauts, but for earthbound medicine. Floating just outside Tiangong are sensors, catching particles that never reach Earth's surface. Cosmic rays born from supernovae energy particles, revealing the fabric of the universe, even possible hints of dark matter passing through us unseen. The high-energy cosmic radiation detector heard will soon scan the heavens for answers to physics' most elusive questions. In orbit, the noise of Earth falls away, and in that silence, space listens more clearly. Tiangong is not just watching biology, it is listening to the universe's oldest whisper. The station also serves as a platform for developing new systems, robotic arms refined with AI, advanced materials that self-repair, greenhouse modules for lunar missions, quantum communication nodes, exploring secure space-based networks. Everything tested aboard Tiangong is a seed, a small prototype, a rehearsal for moon bases, Mars outposts, deep space telescopes, floating laboratories in far orbits. Even failure is welcome here, because in space, every mistake teaches, and every test whispers. One day we will build even further. Though Chinese-led, Tiangong is slowly opening its doors to the world, in partnership with the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, ANUSA, Scientists from Germany, Italy, Japan, Kenya, Pakistan, and Mexico have submitted projects to fly aboard. They include radiation studies, stem cell growth, plant adaptations, base dust, behavior reach experiment, carries a flag. But more than that, each carries a hope that science belongs to no one, that knowledge is borderless, that orbit is shared. In most Earth labs, science is hurried, deadlines, grants, competition, but on Tiangong, time slows, every action is considered, every experiment measured, every result respected. There is no rushing here, only observation, curiosity, patience. To do science in space is to return to the root of the word, Siri, to know, not to dominate, not to profit, but to see more clearly, and that clarity begins in silence. Since the station became operational, Chinese researchers have already published results in fields like human physiology, in orbit stem cell behavior quantum phenomena, heat transfer systems combustion, physics. These aren't just numbers, they're milestones, each one a step toward better spaceflight, longer missions, and a deeper understanding of how life adapts beyond Earth. But more than that, they're reminders that science is not only about big answers, it's about asking small questions in quiet places. Tiangong is not the largest station ever built. It is not the loudest, but perhaps it is the most meditative, a sanctuary of science, orbiting in silence, shaped by careful hands. Here, knowledge is not rushed. Here, questions breathe. Here, dreams crystallize, sometimes literally. And as you drift to sleep tonight, imagine a tiny flame floating in a chamber of still air, a seed sprouting without a direction, a human watching their cells divide while Earth spins below. These are not fantasies, they are happening now. Overhead dot, and somewhere in that station, someone is writing it all down. Every 90 minutes, the Tiangong space station circles the Earth, once around the world, once through the light and the dark, once across oceans, cities, dreams. As it orbits, cameras look outward, toward the stars, but also inward, toward us, toward home. This section is not about galaxies far away. It is about something much closer. Us, our planet, as seen not from the ground, but from above. Welcome to a view only astronauts and satellites know, where Earth is no longer landscape, but memory. From the porthole of the Tiangong station, Earth is not divided. There are no flags, no fences, no names drawn on coastlines, just shapes, patterns, breath. The Amazon curls like a sleeping serpent. The Himalayas stretch like white wrinkles. Across a wise face, storms swirl in the oceans like ancient ink on paper. Every continent passes silently below. Every city glows like a constellation. Every river is a vein from space. Earth is not a place, it is a being. The station is equipped with multiple Earth-observing tools, high-resolution, multispectral cameras, infrared, sensors, cloud-piercing, radar, perspectral, imageristy, are not looking for beauty. Though beauty is often found, they look for forest, laws, glacier, melt crop, health, pollution, trails, typhoon, spirals, nighttime city, growth, and what they see becomes data. That data becomes knowledge, and knowledge becomes responsibility. Tiangong quietly monitors the retreat of Himalayan glaciers, heat waves shimmering across Xinjiang, drying of rivers In the Tibetan Plateau sea level changes. In the South China sea dust storms over the Gobi from orbit. Trends become visible. What seemed slow becomes urgent. What was hidden becomes obvious. You can see the earth warming. You can see it drying, greening, cracking, blooming. Not year by year, but orbit by orbit. Scientists aboard Tiangong study cloud formation, how it influences rainfall and climaterosol patterns to better understand air quality. Algal blooms that signal marine health or decay, volcanic ash distribution, which affects flights and agriculture. Methane leakage, visible as strange heat signatures in pipelines and farms. The Earth becomes a living lab, and every pass of the station offers a new experiment. Because Earth is not static, it moves, it reacts, it remembers. From space, the oceans don't just look blue. They shimmer with gradients, dark, navy, turquoise, silver. Tiangong's sensors capture phytoplankton blooms, the tiny life that feeds whales. Oil slicks, barely visible from land. Coral bleaching, a fading of the planet's rife. Temperature currents, tracing El Niño and La Nineveh. Ripple has a story. Every wave reflects not just light, but change. Night, Tiangong drifts silently over cities that sparkle, not like stars, but like circuitry. Beijing, Tokyo, Delhi, Karachi, Cairo, glowing in web-like patterns. From orbit, urban growth becomes visible. The breathing of cities, their expansion, their traffic, their pollution. Halos. The station records heat islands, where cities are hotter than surrounding countryside. Electricity usage revealed through nighttime. Atmospheric haze, building and dispersing over time. Even noise, indirectly, through movement patterns and energy usage. Cities are living organisms. From orbit, their rhythms become clear. Cameras track the colors of Earth's fields. Green means health. Yellow, stress. Brown, drought. Blue, irrigation. Purple, change. By comparing seasonal images, Tiangong helps scientists forecast crop yields. Plan agricultural policy. Detect food insecurity. Early study the effect of climate on harvests. From orbit, a patch of wheat in Shaanxi matters. A vineyard in France glows differently. A rice field in Bangladesh whispers about water. Farms are more than food. They are indicators of prosperity, pressure, and possibility. While the station cannot see animals, it can see their homes, shrinking forests, expanding deserts, illegal fires, poaching, roads, protected zones. By monitoring Earth's green lungs from the Congo to Yunnan, Tiangong becomes an advocate for the voiceless, and sometimes its sensors even catch herd movement through grasslands. Migration corridors of elephants. Restoration of wildlife areas in silence. Orbit becomes conservation. A watchtower, a sentinel, a quiet reminder that nature is visible and vulnerable. Yet sometimes the most powerful view from space is not data, it is direct, through a window. Takenauts often speak of spending quiet hours just watching Earth. No tasks, no instructions, just looking. They see storms growing over oceans, lights flickering as nations sleep, lightning stretching like silver veins, the Sahara glowing under moonlight, the Pacific as still as Inquan. Astronaut wrote, I saw the sunrise begin in Africa and end in Australia. In just a few minutes, I wept. In that gaze, they remember something vital. We are not separate from Earth. We are part of it. Tiangong crew are encouraged to photograph the planet, not just for science, but for storytelling. Each image tells a moment of weather, a pattern of growth, reminder of change, a vision of beauty. These photos are sent to classrooms, to labs, to agencies and scientists, but also to poets, to artists, to dreamers, because the Earth, viewed from above, is not just a planet, it is a painting. Late at night, when the lights dim aboard Tiangong, takonauts often pause at the window. They speak softly, they write, they reflect, they say, "We're not looking down, we're looking in." The view of Earth becomes a meditation, its silence becomes a language, and sometimes, as they sleep, the planet turns below them, like a lullaby, spinning, enduring, remembered. China plans to expand its Earth observation tools. Next-gen radar that can see through clouds, greenhouse gas sensors to track industrial change disaster, monitoring systems that alert faster, AI-assisted imagery that detects change in real time. All of this to watch Earth better, to know it more clearly, to care for it more deeply, to tear for it more deeply. Tiangong is not just about exploring space, it's about guarding home. As you lay down tonight, know this, right now, someone is watching Earth from orbit, not judging, not fearing, just watching. And as they float in silence, above borders, storms, and history, they remind us, we are beautiful, we are fragile, we are one. Let the clouds pass beneath you. Let the oceans shimmer. Let the deserts sleep. And let your breath match the turning of the planet you are part of. What they see, time flows differently in space. There are no seasons above the clouds. No autumn leaves, no spring rains, only orbits, only revolutions. But here, above Earth, in the silent cradle called Tiangong, time is still real. Not just minutes ticking, but eras unfolding. A decade from now, what will this space station be? A relic, a launchpad, a relic turned launchpad. In this chapter, we do not merely drift, we gaze forward into the near future. And what we find is not just technology, it is intention, and perhaps hope. Today, Tiangong is composed of 3 modules, Tianha, Wenxian, and Mengjian. But China's space architects are already designing additional sections, expandable compartments, cargo nodes, experiment bays. Plans include a new docking hub, allowing more visiting ships, say free-flying telescope, called Zunjin, that orbits nearby and docks for maintenance, advanced research modules, tailored for biotech, deep materials science, and Earth observation. Each new addition is more than mass and volume. It is possibility, an invitation to do something new, and to do it better. The station is modular, because science grows, and so must its home. Perhaps the most exciting addition is Zunjin, China's next-generation space telescope, often dubbed China's Hubble. But, unlike Hubble, which floats far and alone, Zunjin will fly near Tiangong in synchronized orbit. When it needs upgrades, refueling, or repairs, it will dock, be embraced by robotic arms, serviced by astronauts. It is an eye for the universe, paired with hands from Earth, with a field of view 300 times larger than Hubble's. Zunjin will map billions of galaxies, study dark matter and dark energy, watch stars form in distant clouds, and perhaps find something unexpected. Is science with maintenance. Exploration with care. A telescope with a home. Tiangong is not the moon, but it may lead to it. Already China's Change lunar program has delivered rovers, orbiters, and sample return missions. The next phase, a crewed moon landing, and Tiangong plays a role, training astronauts for deep space, missions testing, life support systems for longer stays, experimenting with resource recycling, developing autonomous docking and navigation systems. It is not hard to imagine a decade from now, a spacecraft launching from Earth, stopping at Tiangong to rest, resupply, or rotate, crew then continuing onward toward lunar orbit and beyond. The station becomes not just a lab but a harbor, a quiet harbor at the edge of the Earth's gravity. For now, Tiangong is operated solely by China, but quietly, invitations are being written through the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs, UNUSA. Over a dozen countries have submitted experiments. More are being accepted. There are talks, cautious but growing, of European astronauts joining future missions, joint climate monitoring projects, shared telescope time on Zhangqiang cooperative, emergency response systems, using space data fee. The International Space Station was the stage for ISRU cooperation. Then Tiangong may become the platform for a new space diplomacy, led by China, but shared by all willing partners. In orbit, national pride becomes planetary perspective. Science transcends politics. Quietly, over the next 10 years, Tiangong will become smarter, already equipped with advanced AI subsystems. Future upgrades will include predictive health monitoring for astronauts, self-repairing modules using shape memory, alloy-assisted robotics capable of independent maintenance, machine learning tools that analyze Earth data in real time. The goal, not just to reduce ground control reliance, but to create a semi-autonomous orbital research center, one that can operate with minimal human oversight during uncrewed periods. This allows for continuous experiment, processing real-time alerts for planetary event efficiency, energy balancing, even emergency decision-making. Station that watches itself, learns, responds, and waits patiently for its next guests. The future of Tiangong is not only in looking outward, it will become a powerful mirror for Earth, watching, measuring, protecting. Future Earth-facing systems will track ocean salinity and temperature, certification patterns, ice mass and permafrost crop, stress from drought, methane and greenhouse gas emissions, with AI-enhanced imaging and deep temporal comparisons. The station becomes a long-term environmental sentinel, not just observing Earth as it is, but modeling where it's going and sharing those insights freely with nations in need. Because the only way to save Earth is to see it clearly. The coming decade will also bring private industry aboard. Tiangong, China's space program, is beginning to invite biotech startups to send pharmaceutical experiments, host materials development companies interested in microgravity processes, partner with orbital tourism firms. Yes, the very early beginnings. In time, parts of Tiangong may become a commercial lab in the sky, offering specialized research services unavailable on Earth. Not a hotel, yet, but a serviceable destination for industry, where ideas float before they launch back down as products, cures, or patents. Let us pause and wonder, what might Tiangong become? A school where astronauts from many nations learn not just science, but peace. A beacon, always visible in the night sky, not as a weapon or warning, but as a whisper of progress, a bridge between generations, between Earth and space, between silence and insight. The future is not just about modules or missions. It is about meaning. What does it mean to live above Earth? What kind of civilization do we build when no one is watching? In orbit, reputation fades, only purpose remains. When asked what they hope for, Takenauts answer, not with politics, but poetry, they say. I hope my daughter will look up and know her people reached the stars. I hope one day we'll teach from space. I hope the silence up here becomes part of our thinking down there. They imagine children from every continent watching Earth together, artists painting the moon as seen from Tiangong, medics studying aging through space, biology philosophers contemplating time by orbit, because the station is not just a machine, it is a canvas, and the next decade is the brush. What happens when Tiangong reaches the end of its operational life? That too is being planned. Core systems can be replaced, modules can be upgraded, or the entire station can be deorbited safely, leaving space clear for what comes next. But China hints at a different path, building Tiangong 2, larger, more versatile, launching a lunar orbital station, perhaps even a Martian relay station. One day. Tiangong is not a final product, it is a prototype, refined through use, reshaped through time. In 2035, we may look back on Tiangong's early years as humble, but from this vantage point, tonight, drifting quietly through a story above Earth, we can already sense this station is not just about China. It is about what's possible when we slow down, build carefully, and look forward together in orbit. There is no rush, but there is vision, and tonight, you've floated through it, quietly, patiently, hopefully, high above the spinning Earth. 3 humans drift, not toward something, not away from something, just within it, inside a space station made of steel and circuits. They breathe, eat, sleep, remember, but more than anything, they feel, because even in orbit, the soul remains. Even in weightlessness, we carry weight of memory, of longing, of thought. In this section, we leave behind tools and technology, and instead, we turn inward to explore the unspoken frontier, the human mind in space. To live in orbit is to float constantly, to never walk, to never lie down, to never feel your body press against a bed or a chair. This has strange consequences. The vestibular system, which balances your body, goes quiet. Your sense of up and down fades. Your spine lengthens. Blood redistributes. But something else shifts. 2. The sense of self. Astronauts often describe an eerie feeling. I don't feel inside my body anymore. Your limbs drift. Your breath is soft. Your heart beats without resistance. And slowly you become something else. Not just physical, but perceptual. Tiangong orbits Earth every 90 minutes. That means 16 sunrises per day. 16 sunsets, day and night, become meaningless instead. Time is marked by alarms, checklists, cycles and silence, but even these are slippery. Some astronauts report that time seems to expand, especially during spacewalks. Others feel it contracts. Whole weeks vanish in memory. Without the daily markers of life on Earth, time becomes a mist, floating like the crew themselves, and memory. It drifts too often, blending days into dreams. People dream in space, and their dreams are different. Some report vivid, surreal visions, floating through childhood homes, talking to people long gone, seeing themselves on Earth. Those experience lucid dreams where they're aware, even in sleep, that they're in orbit. Many takenauts keep dream journals. One entry reads, "I was walking through a bamboo forest, but every leaf floated beside me. I reached out, and my hand passed through them like stars." Psychologists studying these patterns believe the lack of gravity may alter brain activity. The absence of environmental stimuli increases dream intensity. The emotional pressure of isolation enhances subconscious imagery. Whatever the cause, astronauts dream of Earth, but rarely of space. The brain, like the body, must adapt to orbit. Studies show changes in attention spans, spatial orientation, emotional regulation, decision making. Under stress, the brain remaps itself to interpret floating motion. It recalibrates up and down. It learns to let go of the ground. Sometimes this leads to euphoria, sometimes confusion. Many astronauts report short-term memory lapses, difficulty focusing, an intense sense of awe that distracts from tasks set. Over time, the brain adjusts. It becomes quiet. It learns the rhythm of stillness. Living in a metal box for months, far from touch, weather, laughter, requires more than discipline. It requires ritual. Each takenaut develops personal coping strategies, morning breathing exercises, evening journaling, meditation, to music, from home watching Earth quietly for long stretches. Some paint, some write poetry. Some bring small tokens from loved ones, letters, fabrics, tiny figurines. They do not distract, they anchor. In space, routine becomes religion, because the mind needs ground, even when the body has none. Let's not romanticize it. There is loneliness in space. Real, aching, quiet, the kind of loneliness where you miss the smell of trees you long to be brushed against in a crowd. You crave the unpredictability of noise. Astronauts call it existential distance. It's not that I'm far from people, it's that I'm far from everything that makes us people. Even with radio links, video calls, and mission updates, silence creeps in, and sometimes so does sadness. To ease this, the crew receives messages from Earth, personal notes, from family voice clips, from children news, from their hometown music, requests. Sivan, poetry is simple. We're proud of you can echo louder than rockets. These messages are scheduled, like meals. They are part of the emotional diet, because feelings, too, must be nourished. Takenauts are never alone, but they are isolated together. Three humans in close proximity, sharing everything: the air, the schedule, the silences. Conflicts can happen. So can laughter. So can moments of unexpected intimacy, like watching Earth pass beneath in silence, shoulder to shoulder. Psychologists train crews in active listening, yon verba, de-escalation, conflict modeling, group meditation. It is not just about cohabiting, it's about coexisting, gently and in orbit. Kindness becomes essential. Almost every astronaut describes one singular shift, the overview effect. It happens suddenly. You look out the window and realize Earth is small, delicate, unified. There are no nations from up here, only home. This realization often leads to increased empathy, spiritual reflection, a deeper sense of purpose, and sometimes tears. As one takenaut wrote, "I came here for science, but but I stayed in wonder. It is not a trained effect, it is a human one in space. Memory becomes sharper, not because more happens, but because less does. Each moment becomes rich with meaning, the sound of boiling watering, shared laugh after a tiring experiment, the exact shape of the Earth's shadow during an eclipse. Astronauts journal obsessively. They describe how stars looked different tonight. Their dreams carried smellsy. Plant experiment reminded them of their grandmother's gardening isolation. Everything becomes metaphor, and space becomes a mirror, reflecting not the cosmos, but the soul. Sleep in space is strange. There is no weight, no blanket, no bed, just a cocoon, zipped to a wall. The station is quiet, but never silent. Fans hum, lights blink. The station breathes, and so do they. Sleep is fragile. Dreams come differently, but rest is found eventually. And when they close their eyes, it is not darkness they see, it is Earth, spinning slowly, calling softly, waiting. It is not cinematic, it is deeply human. It is missing your mother's voice. It is watching storms without hearing thunder. It is brushing your teeth with a teaspoon of water. But it is also discovering peace in stillness, finding new forms of joy, creating meaning from silence, and redefining what it means to be alive. Perhaps above alien space, we become more of ourselves, not less. High above the clouds, a shape orbits the Earth. Not a bird, not a comet, not a star, a station built by human hands, sailing in silence. And though it carries machines, data, and wires, it also carries something older, deeper meaning, because every civilization in its own time builds mirrors. Some of polished stone, some of glass and metal, and now some of solar panels and docking ports. Tiangong, Heavenly Palace, is one such mirror, floating above us, yet reflecting us. In this section, we look not only at the station's engineering, but at its symbolism. What does it say about us as a species, a society, a civilization, to build a home in the sky? Names matter. Tiangong is not a random designation. It means the heavenly palace in Chinese culture. The phrase conjures ancient myths, the jade emperor's celestial court change, the moon goddess gazing down from her silver home, the 8 immortals floating between stars. To name a space station Tiangong is not just poetic. It is cultural memory, revived in orbit. It connects rockets with scrolls, satellites with silk robes, solar panels with starlit parables, while others name their stations after modules or mechanics. China named theirs after a myth, and in doing so, they reconnected science to story. Every era builds sanctuaries in its image. Ancient Egypt built pyramids to align with stars. The Greeks raised temples to house their gods. The Islamic Golden Age filled observatories with astrolabes and prayers. Medieval cathedrals reached toward heaven with spires. Now, humanity builds stations, still sacred in a way, but not for worship, for witnessing, for watching the earth, the stars, ourselves. Tiangong, then, is not just a lab. It is a modern temple, not of religion, but of reverence, floating silently. In orbit, it asks questions that temples once asked. Where are we? Why are we here? What lies beyond? Tiangong's design is not merely functional, it is intentional. A central core module, Tian, harmony of the heavens, 2 lab wings, Wenshan, quest for the heavens, and Menshan, Dreaming of the heavens, a telescope companion, Sunshine, survey of the heavens, each name, each shape, each extension is part of a larger vision, a symphony of aspiration. And unlike earlier stations, blocky, utilitarian, pragmatic, Tiangong's symmetry evokes balance. It reflects feng shui, perhaps unintentionally, even in space. Culture flows through cables and corridors. On board Tiangong, you will not only find lab equipment, you will also find a red silk flag folded near the main screen, traditional teas in small, vacuum-sealed pouch, paper-cut art floating on the air currents, Mandarin. Lullabies quietly humming through private earpieces, calligraphy, scrolls with poems from Du Fu and Li Baithes are not scientific instruments. They are human markers, they say. Even here, we carry where we came from. Even here, we remain who we are. And that matters, because exploration without identity becomes conquest. But exploration with identity, that becomes an offering. When Tiangong sends signals to Earth, it sends more than telemetry. It sends proof that peace can orbit, proof that science can be soft proof. The technology and tenderness are not opposites. Every live feed, every public outreach video, every crew update is a subtle message. This is what we value. This is what we've built. This is who we are when no one else is watching. In this way, Tiangong becomes an ambassador, not just for China, but for human potential. Inside Tiangong, astronauts float, but their minds drift home. They speak of the taste of noodles, the laughter of grandparents, the smell of pine forests in Sichuan, the rhythm of old songs, and, when they look down, they see the rivers that shaped their childhood, the plains that hold their memories, the cities glowing like open poems. In this way, the station becomes a memory palace, not just knowledge, but of emotion. Life in Tiangong is not just experiments and repairs. It includes rituals. Every sunrise is greeted with silence. Every meal begins with gratitude. Every Earth observation includes a moment of awe. These are not protocols. They are acts of civilization. To ritualize life in orbit is to humanize the void, because a civilization is not measured by what it builds, but by how it lives among what it builds. In Tiangong's mirrors, we see not just stars, but ourselves. Our contradictions, fragility and ambition, precision and poetry, salation and connection. Our hopes to understand Moretto, protect better, to reach further, and our fears of forgetting what matters, of losing touch, floating forever, untethered from meaning. The station holds them all, as if to say, here is humanity, not perfect, but reaching. From the ground, Tiangong appears as a moving star, a soft glow, silent and certain. For some, it's just a satellite. For others, it's something more, a lantern, floating in the dark, carrying wishes, lighting the way. In traditional festivals, lanterns are released into rivers and skies, to remember, to celebrate, to pray. Tiangong to quarries these functions. It remembers human progress, it celebrates peaceful science, it prays silently for continuity. Space station as a candle, not to burn but to guide. Someday, centuries from now, Tiangong may no longer exist. Its modules may decay. Its panels may drift apart. Its memory may fade into sky maps and digital museums. But echoes remain. A future historian may say, they built this not because they had to, but because they believed the sky belonged to everyone. In this way, Tiangong is not the end of something. It is the echo of everything that came before. The cave paintings, the scrolls, the satellites, the songs, the myth sand, perhaps. The beginning of what comes next. If Tiangong teaches anything, it is this, that technology can be gentle, that science can be cultural, that space can be sacred, that orbit can be a place of poetry. Reminds us that civilization is not defined by skyscrapers or GDP, but by how we treat silence, how we speak across distances, and how we carry our stories, even into the stars. Tonight, Tiangong moves quietly above us, not with triumph, not with thunder, but with intention. It reflects Earth, not as it is, but as it could be, peaceful, curious, caring. It is not the answer to all questions, but it is a sign that we are still asking them, and that is what keeps a civilization alive in space. There are no borders, no flags etched into the oceans, no walls wrapping mountains, no armies, no checkpoints, no passports, just orbits, just motion, just silence. Here, in the cradle of gravity's gentleness, nations vanish, and what remains? Possibility. Tonight we drift through Section 9, where we explore not wires or modules, but meaning, not propulsion systems, but peace. Tiangong, the heavenly palace, floats in silence, but that silence speaks volumes. On Earth, peace is rare. We draw lines, we define others. We fight over things we can't carry with us when we die, but from above, none of it matters. From space, the Earth is a blue marble unified breathe, fragile home with a paper-thin atmosphere, and Tiangong, orbiting above it all, feels the whole planet at once. In 90 minutes, it passes over. Cities in conflict farms, in drought rivers polluted, and rivers healing languages, cultures, dreams, billions of them, flickering, and it does so without judgment, just observation, just presence. Unlike Earth, space is governed by treaties, norms, trust. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, signed even in the heart of the Cold War, declared, space shall be the province of all mankind. No nation may claim a celestial body. No weapon may orbit Earth. Space is for peace, and Tiangong, by its very name and nature, lives by that rule. It is not a weapon. It is not surveillance. It is not exclusive. It is a floating lab, a home for science, a possibility. You can argue over politics, but not over gravity, or photosynthesis, or cosmic rays. Science doesn't care about who funds it, only whether it works. And in space, science becomes a common language. Experiments aboard Tiangong have come from Pakistan, Kenya, Mexico, Germany, Saudi Arabia. Proposals come in many tongues, but once aboard, they speak data. The station becomes a translator of ideas, hopes, and shared questions. It asks, how do plants grow without gravity? How does space affect aging? Can orbit help us solve problems on Earth? And in asking, it invites everyone. Tiangong was once seen as a closed system, only Chinese astronauts, only domestic missions, only inward focus, but slowly, intentionally, it opens through ANUSA. Developing countries are invited to send experiment stocks with European space agencies. Our ongoing cultural and educational exchanges are being proposed joint. Lunar architecture is on the table, China says. If you wish to study the heavens with us, the door is not locked. Tiangong becomes a doorway, not just to space, but to understand. What if we saw Tiangong not as a project, but as a prototype for how Earth could be? Diverse cultures, working side by side, resources shared, not hoarded data, given free lie conflict resolved before it begins on Earth. We wait for peace to emerge from treaties. In orbit, peace emerges from necessity, because here you can't afford a grudge. In zero gravity, you depend on each other for survival. Coexist in tight quarters for months, and strangely it works. Tiangong is proof that in a confined, dangerous place, peace is possible. Orbit itself is a metaphor, a balance between fall and flighty, compromise between surrender and motion, a path that holds without controlling. If you move too fast, you break free; too slow, you crash. But in perfect balance, you float. Is that not peace? Not stasis? Not surrender, but movement in harmony. Tiangong is not still, it is peaceful, because it is precisely in motion. The astronauts aboard the station don't talk politics, they share meals, swap stories, float tools across air currents like children. With paper planes in orbit, kindness is letting someone nap an extra 5 minutes, floating a piece of candy from home taping, a photo of their family near the lab bench reading poetry out loud at 2 a.m. Small gestures. But in microgravity, everything moves further. Kindness, too, has inertia in space. It lasts longer. Peace isn't about treaties, it's about listening. What in trusting the unknown, sharing discomfort, knowing you're small and choosing to help anyway. Tiangong teaches that peace is maintenance. Like any station, you must check your systems, repair what's cracked, replace what no longer works, and, most importantly, breathe together. It is not glamorous, but it is sacred. When Tiangong sends down video feeds of crew laughing, floating, planting seeds, it doesn't announce we are peaceful. It just is, and the world watches, sometimes quietly inspired. Sometimes I am skeptical, but always watching. And in that watching, a new image of China emerges, not as a threat, but as a partner, not as a rival, but as a collaborator, not with military power, but with scientific grace. The message is subtle. Join us not in conquest, but in curiosity. Perhaps the greatest hope lies not in policies or budgets, but in perspective. The overview effect changes not just astronauts, but Earth. It ripples. When we know that Earth is one, the sky is shared. The problems are mutual, the solutions are collective. In space becomes not a race, but a reunion. Tiangong does not shout this, it simply orbits, like a soft, persistent whisper above our conflicts. Tonight, Tiangong passes overhead again. It does not pause. It does not falter. It carries 3 souls. It carries hundreds of experiments. It carries a nation's pride. But above all, it carries a lesson that peace, like orbit, is fragile. But if maintained with care, if held in balance, if shared with trust, it endures, and it glows, not brightly, but enough to be seen by anyone who looks up every night. The stars remain. They do not rush. They do not explain. They simply wait, patient, distant, constant, above Earth. Tiangong floats, still persistent, a quiet reply to their light. And below it, we wonder, where do we go next? What will orbit become? Who are we becoming up there? This is the last section, but it is not an ending. It is a beginning. Folded in silence, a whisper from the sky. We began with metal, bolts, modules, blueprints, and we ended with dreams, with memory, with shared breath. In just decades, humanity has gone from sketches on napkins to live-streamed experiments. 400 kilometers above Earth, from Cold War silos to shared labs. But what comes after Tiangong? China has already hinted a Tiangong 2, bigger, longer-lived, more international moon base, possibly co-built with Russia or other partners, a future Martian sample return chain, with orbiting stations as relays and possibly an Earth-Moon corridor of permanent human presence. In other words, not just visits. Residency. The moon is no longer unreachable. Its surface is scarred with history. Yes, but also with possibility. Already, Chinese probes have landed on the far side, returned samples map. Ice deposits in shadowed craters, the future whispers, permanent lunar orbiters, supporting both robotic and crewed missions, Tiangong-like stations circling the moon, like lighthouses in the dark, radio telescopes on the far side, shielded from Earth's noise, cosmic weather stations, watching solar flares and radiation belts, and perhaps cities, one day carved into dust, lit by soft solar glows, built not with conquest, but care. If Earth is our cradle, the moon may be our first garden. Beyond Mars lies further, harder, colder, but not silent. China's Tianwen-1 mission orbited and landed successfully. Its rover, Jerome whispered across the sand. Now comes the next question. Can we stay? To stay on Mars requires new space stations in deeper orbits, radiation-shielded habitats, fully autonomous life-support, psychological endurance, measured not in weeks but years. Tiangong, small as it seems, is training for this. Every moment in orbit is a rehearsal for deeper quiets. As we extend our reach, human mind will stretch with it. Already, studies show prolonged spaceflight affects memory, empathy, and creativity, can deepen introspection. Seeing Earth from orbit changes political views, even personal values. Imagine a generation raised among orbits. Will they dream differently? Will they still write songs about rain? Will gravity become a metaphor for limitation? Will they draw maps of places they've never walked? The cosmos is not just expanding our knowledge, it is redefining what it means to be human in microgravity. Biology changes. Cells divide differently. Bones weaken, genes express in unexpected ways. Aging accelerates and decelerates in strange rhythms. These aren't errors. They are adaptations in progress. In orbit, evolution doesn't pause, it listens, it tests. One day, we may even intentionally design life for space. Crops that grow upside down, microbes that convert CO into oxygen more efficiently. Human organs bioengineered to resist radiation. Space becomes a laboratory of life. Not sterile, but blooming. What if your first classroom was in orbit? What if history class included watching storms from above? China has already begun broadcasting live lessons from Tiangong, showing young students how flames behave in zero. Letting children ask takenauts questions and get answers from space. It is not symbolic. It is real engagement, and it teaches that space is not an elite frontier, it is a shared library. Soon we may see orbital universities, space station internships, classrooms with windows, showing continents spinning beneath, rerouted in the stars. The further we go, the more we'll need each other. Space is expensive. Space is risky. Space is vast, and so new collaborations will emerge between China and Europe, between emerging space nations in Africa and Asia, between private companies and public agencies, between generations of dreamers. All languages, all lands. Tiangong opened that door. Its message: we can do this together, carefully, quietly, wonderfully. If Earth's politics divide, U.S. space may remind us how to unify. Tiangong is linear, but future stations may be ring-shaped, using slow rotation to simulate gravity. Modular trees, branching in every direction, inflatable domes, lightweight and expandable tethered pairs, spinning like celestial dumbbells. Some will host ZOG, hospitals, orbital, archives, meditation temples, storytelling, theaters, because space is not just for science, it is for culture, and wherever humans go, stories follow. Imagine sculptures that float perpetually in orbit, choreographed dances in weightlessness, paintings made of light trails, captured by long exposure cameras, music composed from the rhythms of solar winds. Already, artists have begun sending poems into space, beaming art to the moon, making music with astronaut heartbeats in the future. Tiangong's legacy may not be measured in patents, but in beauty created beyond gravity. We once looked to the sky for gods. Now we look for ourselves, for reflection, for understanding, for memory, for a promise. And the stations we build, Tiangong and those to come, are mirrors. They show us what we value, what we fear, what we hope to become. They orbit silently, but their message is loud. You can rise, you can connect, you can wonder forever. In 10 years, you may have friends who've been to space. You may visit a space museum in orbit. Your grandchildren may farm tomatoes grown in lunar soil. The word Earthling may no longer feel like a joke. In 20 years, human births may occur in orbit. A poem written aboard Tiangong may be taught in schools. The overview effect may be a rite of passage. And in 50, space may not feel like a way. It may feel like an extension, like walking beyond your village, or hearing your voice echo in the next room. This story began with a station, a place above Earth, made of metal, filled with people, powered by the sun. But it became more, a symbol, a sanctuary, a question. Tonight, as you know that the stars still spin, the station still hums, and the dream continues, you are part of it, even here, even now, not just watching space, but belonging to it. Welcome to the cosmos.